Excellent. Hi, this is Mark Reese with the GoldenEye Infinity Smart Screen. I am the Smart Screen, not Screen. I am the marketing director. And today I have the pleasure of speaking to Neil Gordon. Neil is an innovation manager at BNBuilders in the Seattle office. His role at BNB is really to manage the innovation department, which includes running projects, managing personnel, and developing new processes and procedures as they advance in the use of BIM, building information modeling, and BDC, virtual design and construction. And we're going to have a conversation about technology, about the construction industry, and really how they're starting to take this newer technology and put it to good use. So, Neil, I appreciate you taking the call and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
And again, I'm really interested in kind of starting at the beginning. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about BNBuilders and your role as the innovation manager.
So BNBuilders is a West Coast general contractor. Been around for about 15 years now. Started in Seattle. We have offices in San Diego and LA, and looking to expand in a few more cities here soon. I've been with BNBuilders now for about 3 years, and I was hired in as an innovation engineer and was promoted to a manager about 2 years ago. And as an innovation manager, if you people who follow the construction industry or are familiar with BIM and BDC, it's been a kind of an interesting kind of path that it's gone on for the last 10, 15 years. And everyone has a different kind of way of titling their BIM BDC people. So innovation engineer, although we do a lot of innovation in our department, really our department is more about the BIM and BDC side of things.
Can I stop you for a second? So for people who don't know, can you talk a little bit about BIM and BDC and what they are?
So BIM information modeling is where we create a 3D model of the project before they actually start construction of it. In the beginning, it was a lot of just the subcontractors and the general contractors that were making the models because they were seeing the benefits. And the architects, slowly transitions from 2D to 3D. And so now that we're all kind of moving into the 3D world of BIM, the information part of it is we can add a lot of different information to the model that we can use for a lot of different things in the construction industry. For instance, we can get volumes of concrete to calculate how much concrete we're going to pour in the next pour. We can do a lot of estimating by using the model and taking information that we can put in the models. We can specify wall types, windows, equipment, fan types, all different kinds of information can all be added to the models and then be used more. So that's where it's the building, and then the information is the information I was discussing, and then that's all added to the model. And then virtual design and construction, it's more about using the model for actual construction purposes, and it's continuing to expand both BIM and BDC. If you ask one person, you'll probably get a different definition from each person you ask that's in the industry. It'll be similar, but there's always a little differences. But in BDC, we use it more for trying to do say a 4D model, and that's where we can take the actual 3D model and incorporate the schedule from a Primavera or a Microsoft project, bring it into a single program, and then connect the geometry to the actual tasks, and then you can play it and watch the model go up in a timeline. And by doing that, we can really fine tune our scheduling, see issues before they happen. But that's more of the BDC side. And of course, that also leads into the VR and the AR aspects, virtual reality and the augmented reality. And that's where things have really taken off in the last few years as far as BDC is going.
So when you came on board about, like you said, 3 years ago, how has the technology evolved? And it seems like you guys are pretty forward thinking and pretty open to technology. I mean, the fact that they hired an innovation manager like yourself. So let's talk a little bit about what attracted you, what you saw when you first started, and then kind of how you're advancing and really kind of maybe moving into the AR/VR space.
So I came from a larger general contractor before I came to B&B. And at the larger company, it was a lot more difficult to innovate. It's when you have multiple layers and different people of different knowledges making decisions, it's a lot more steps, and it takes a little bit more time to get approval for purchasing things and all the other parts of the kind of bureaucracy that comes with a big company. With B&B, they're more of a medium-sized, and when I came in and talked with them, it was pretty obvious from the beginning that they really put a focus on being the innovation leader in their market size, their niche of the market for general contractors. And that really attracted me. And then talking with people that I knew that worked there, they were really open to trying new things. They want everybody, we really want to let people try stuff and try to find new ways to do things. It's got its good points and its bad points. If you ask my IT manager, they get a little frustrated with all the programs everybody loads. But if you see the progress and the people we hire and giving them that freedom and seeing what happens out in the field, you can see the benefits of it as well. So between those two things and having a nice budget, which is always nice, it was a pretty attractive place to go, and it's really worked out since I came in. I kind of implemented some of the stuff we were doing at the bigger company because there was good things we were doing that we could incorporate, and then we started to try to advance some of the stuff that we've seen in the industry, and from laser scanning to, like I talked about, 4D models, and then to VR and AR.
So BNBuilders, you guys are mainly you're an enterprise builder, right? You build for businesses. You're not doing home construction.
Yeah, we typically just businesses, life science, tech corporations. We do some government GC work and those type of projects.
So when you're introducing this technology, sometimes in a lot of the enterprise organizations that I've spoken with, there's always a disconnect between like the innovation managers and the top level executives. Then you get down to like the people who are actually doing the work and adopting the technology. Did you guys run into that where people were kind of, nah, I don't think so?
Yeah, that happens quite often. I mean, it's something you kind of get used to. What I've learned over time is to help convince some of the other people, me talking and me being excited about it. Sometimes, I get excited about new software and new technology, so it might not come off as anything, new to those type of people. But if I work with the engineers in the field, the superintendents, the project managers, get a few of those people excited about it, get them using it, get them talking about it, them talking to the people above, and then get that kind of, start kind of small and get the energy built up. Then when I approach the executives and stuff, they may have already heard about it, and the discussion becomes a lot easier and makes it, a little bit more successful. It's not always, because a lot of times the software is pretty spendy and we don't want to be the first to do everything.
Yeah, sure, I get it. And the IT managers, I think the biggest challenge is they don't want to put anything into their network that could potentially, quote unquote, kind of ruin or wreak havoc on their network. So how have you, when you've been wanting to integrate some of the AR and VR technology, how have you guys overcome those challenges with your IT managers?
Well, actually, it was the story that I can tell about AR is we work with a company called Synchro, and they're the 4D software, and they're a pretty advanced software company in the industry. And when the HoloLens came out, they were one of the first ones to start trying to create an app or an application for the HoloLens. And like I said, one of my friends worked there. He was in town, and he was showing some people, and he asked if he could come by, and I said, sure. So he came in, and I had a few executives, the IT manager, and everybody that came in, put on the HoloLens. He showed the app, and everybody was pretty blown away because we were able to see a project in a one-to-one scale overlaid onto, reality. And so the next day, my IT manager came to me and said, hey, I bought you a HoloLens.
Nice.
All right. So that was, again, that was a lot different at B&B than it would have ever been at Mortensen. That something like that would have never happened.
So have you been, with the HoloLens, have you been actively using it?
Yeah, we use it quite a bit. The HoloLens We're using it specifically one app that I've been using almost since I started using it. I tried a few and I found this one that worked really well. And the company that's doing it has really taken off and really advanced their app as we went along. But we use it quite often.
So, Neil, let me ask you a question. There's a lot, as AR starts to develop and more people are saying, hey, I think I want to try this. What would you tell another construction company about some of the benefits? And then, kind of some of the risks that you kind of overcame with incorporating AR or a VR tool, maybe such as like the HoloLens?
So as far as AR goes, it's a good tool in that we can take, like I was talking about before, we do the MEP coordination and do the BIM 3D modeling all before we start construction. But being able to take that model now and put it into an AR device and bring it out to the field and compare what we did in coordination to what's being installed connects those two processes together. A lot of times, a lot of money is spent on coordination and going through coordination and producing everything that comes from coordination and never makes it to the field. And sometimes if there's issues in the field, coordination, can be blamed for it. But if we're comparing and checking things that are being installed to what was coordinated as we're going along, the AR tool is a great tool for doing that. And we can either catch issues in the field before they become a problem, or we can try to confirm that everything's going in, and we can also track the progress as well.
So, in your opinion, what's the tipping point? What needs to happen for faster adoption rates in the construction industry?
I think a lot of it comes to the computer being a lot faster and a lot more reliable. Cloud computing has made a huge difference in the way that we can exchange large amounts of information now. And a lot of that has really made a big change. The development of the technology itself has made a huge difference as well. Before, for VR, for instance, if we wanted to turn one of our models into a VR model, it could take almost a week for somebody to go through the whole process of converting it and getting it into a VR type of Oculus type of device. Now, with the new programs and the new software and the continuing development, it takes a day or two to get a fully rendered model put together and into a VR type of a device.
Do you think the construction industry is slow to adopt technology?
Yeah, I'd say for sure construction is. There's a few different, I think, reasons for it. One, it's like the oldest industry in the world, and everybody's been doing things so similar for so long. I think that takes just time to change that. And then I think I worked in manufacturing before coming to construction. And manufacturing, when you're building the same products over and over and over again, you can make advancements a lot easier than when you're doing a different construction project every time. There is a lot of similarities in construction from project to project, but there's enough differences that it's really hard to try to develop something that's going to work for every project every time. So I think that those two things are really part of it.
I think I know a lot of construction workers, and even when I begin to talk to them about technology, these are old school guys, right? Like the foremans, and you're like, yeah, we're not going to use that. I was actually talking about GoldenEye to somebody who actually runs job sites here in Boston, and he was like, we will never ever use that. I said, well, never say never. You guys are using tablets. You guys are using tablets and smartphones. He goes, well, that's different. Not really. It's kind of an evolution, and I think that we're going from a tablet and smartphone type culture to more advanced, more wearables. And I think that when you can train, I think one of the biggest benefits would be training. But you see, you hire a lot of apprentices or a lot of inexperienced workers.
Yep.
So I think that there could be I think that there could be a big benefit just from the training, just from the training aspect of it.
Yeah. The other part that I see a huge expansion with AR would be with safety. I've talked with a few companies that are looking at it. With the way AR works, you can have it on your phone, your tablet, your glasses, but you could just have little codes, pictures around the site that you can just scan with your phone that would give you the information for the specific type of, issues that the safety could be. You could do first-person safety walks in the, look at all the different conditions and then show that video as part of the first day, first hour. As before anybody can go on site, they have to go through that first day, first hour training. And just a lot of different things. And if you had your phone, people would start using their phones, their tablets, and then to their glasses where they can even access web and extended information. So I think that that's one thing for sure that I see moving forward with the AR.
The phone, a lot of people don't realize this, but the phone really is one of the best AR devices we have right now. And as more and more of these devices become available, GoldenEye is going to be released later this year into mass production. And, just the fact that you can just clip it onto almost any set of safety glasses and you can use it on the right or left eye. And what it's doing is it's not so much augmented reality, it's what I like to call augmented information. It's putting information in front of you, in front of the user's point of view, field of view, so that they can work completely hands-free. And the remote expertise part, where they can talk to remote experts, or like you said, have somebody actually walk them through a procedure or a system, I think is a big, big benefit and actually cuts down on training time.
Yep. I also see the glasses, as far as like the actual workers in the field that are working, being able to have that ability to access their drawings and the information they need. And then, like you said, a remote assistant type of a process where they can call the guy back in the office who's an expert in what they're trying to figure out and who can help them right on the spot. I see all of that type of technology really taking off in construction. I think the biggest piece that's going to change it, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that says this, but the 5G, I think, is going to make a huge difference, just in a lot of different ways that the internet works, the connectivity, and everything else that's going to be involved with it. Because on the job site, that is a challenge, is connectivity.
I think 5G is a game changer. When we were at CES, we did a panel discussion. Copen did a panel discussion with experts in 5G, and that is going to be, it's almost a necessity in order to, I think, gain faster adoption and also make things possible. 5G is going to make things possible. 5G is like a rocket ship compared to, right now, let's say we're at a turtle's pace. 5G is going to be like a rocket ship, and I think it's going to really transform the way everybody does business, everybody interacts, everybody communicates, and it's going to be a game changer. And for the construction industry and other industries like field service and so forth, I think it's going to be mind-blowing what we're going to be able to do once 5G is fully implemented.
Yep. And that's why I'm hoping to kind of get ahead and get people used to some of this new technology so that when it even gets better, we're ready to take off with it as well.
You guys have been developing some AR tools to support common tasks like quality control and inspections, for example. Can you talk a little bit about those?
We actually use an app for most of that called Visual Live. We have a guy down in San Diego. His name's Michael Goldberg, and he's our VR and AR kind of. He's more our VR guy, and he works with AR as well. And he developed his own app of exporting out a model in a one-to-one scale and being able to locate it in the field. And it works pretty good. He uses QR codes and locates them, and then exports the model out. And he uses, I think, Unreal to do that. But the app we're using has been developed a little bit farther, and it's really similar in that it exports out the model, and we can export out a pretty good piece of the model, say an entire floor of a building. And then within the model, we put in markers located in the model itself. So we accurately locate it. And what we typically use are columns. So we'll put a marker 5 feet up from the floor centered on a column, and we put them on all the columns on the floor. And then when you have the app Visual Live and you go to the app, there's a scan button. You scan that marker, it loads the model and then locates the model accurately in the space you're at so that you can start comparing it to what's being installed.
Do you have you seen a reduction in cost? One of the things that a lot of manufacturers of AR devices, wearable devices, they like to talk about a reduction in cost. It's going to save the company money. Have you seen Have you seen something that says, yes, this is definitely, the investment was well worth, the return on investment was well worth it?
Yeah, it's, kind of hard to quantify sometimes, and implementing new stuff, you don't know where to look or when it's going to happen sometimes. But one of the stories that I can tell is we first implemented it to use it for a QA/QC on a technical company project. It was really fast paced, and they were labs and all kinds of different, pretty complicated spaces. But because everything was moving so fast, we implemented this process, and the engineers were able to go out in the field, use the iPad, and look at what was being installed, and they were finding ductwork that was installed lower than the ceilings, and they were finding that a week before the ceilings were going to go in. They were finding other pieces of equipment that were installed different than what was in the model that were going to cause problems, and we're able to work with the other subs to address those problems before they got to that point. So in construction, if we can find a problem a day or two before it's supposed to be installed and can come up with a plan to resolve that problem, we may cost a little bit more money, but we're not going to lose time, and time is everything. So on that project alone, they probably found at least a dozen pretty major issues in the field based off of what was supposed to be installed off the model.
Let me ask you a question. So with the ductwork, and that's a great example. So you guys discovered that the ductwork was actually going to be lower than the ceiling, and I'm assuming the ductwork was meant to be in the ceiling, correct?
Yep.
So just in terms of finding that, had you found, let's say that you discovered that as you were going to, start building out the ceiling, that had to definitely save time, but it also had to save money, no?
Yeah. If you imagine, in construction, every day there's a new different crew coming and a different crew going, just based off the activities as we move through the process. So of course, we're going to start with framing first, then roughing of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Then drywall is going to come in, and then finishes, and then the ceilings kind of come in. So as that all happens, if say the HVAC sub was already off site and the ceiling guy came in to put in that ceiling, they put in one ceiling, went to go do the second ceiling, they're halfway through the day, they see that they can't install it because the HVAC's in the way. At that point, more often than not, they're told to go home. They still get paid a full day's work. They have to call the HVAC guys, come back in, reroute the HVAC, however many days that's going to take, and then they call the ceiling guy back to come back in and finish the ceilings. Now, if the ceiling had more places to go, of course, they'd go and move on to those and come back. But in the worst case scenario, they could be sent away and then have to come back. And so all of that back and forth costs a lot of extra money. So if we can find out why the HVAC guy's there, get it fixed before the ceiling guy gets there, it's a huge difference.
I think that, in HVAC, these field service techs in the HVAC industry anyways, imagine if they were equipped with a wearable, they could actually overlay, they could actually see the diagram on where they're supposed to put it, and then it could actually tell the right height, the right drop, and then it kind of talking about the QA piece, and you guys could go in, you could scan it, and boom, you're done, right?
Yep. So I've been working with a few of our subcontractors to get them to start trying to adopt, and I've been successful with a couple of electrical companies. And with the software we use, we can share all of the same model and start using it to put in, mark up things in the model, and the next guy can come in, scan, and he can see what he's going to do. And so work all together in that platform is the goal for the next project. And looks like I'm going to have at least two, hopefully all three of the subs on board for this next project we're starting up.
It would be very interesting to be able to, maybe even come back and talk about that, see how when you had all the subs on board with the technology, did it save time? Did it save money? We know that it's going to, the hypothesis is, but being able to really kind of do the job efficiently. And that's what we're talking about being more efficient and being more productive with technology. I think it's fantastic. So in terms of the next 5 years, a lot of people I've talked to says, we're kind of right here. We're just about at the takeoff in terms of full AR adoption. In the next 5 years, what's the construction site look like? What's your job look like using AR and VR?
I think it's going to be a lot different. I think you're going to see a lot more of the smart glasses, all the ways from the ones that you can just access information, are good for a lot of different things, all the way up to the HoloLens for some more of the sophisticated stuff. And also, I'm like we were talking about before, between the phones and the tablets, it's hard to, for me, it's almost a little hard to imagine how that technology is going to take off in 5 years. Just from what I've seen in the last 2 years of starting to really get involved with this and how much it's changed, it's going to be crazy. We're going to have so much different technology. You're going to be able to click on things in the real world and click on an object and get information from that object. I mean, they're already coming close to doing some of that already. I can't wait to see it, I guess, is all I can say.
I would think, in my opinion, and I was thinking about this, I can imagine a time when you're sitting in your meeting and the architect brings you on board, and as opposed to just looking at the blueprint and looking at the drafts and the schematics, you'll actually be immersed in that, and you'll actually be able to see it in real time around you and actually be able to interact with, and then also to move things. And then as you move it, it actually changes the diagram. That's what I can definitely see. I don't know if that'll be in 5 years, but I would say probably in the next 10 to 15, you'll be able to actually go into the blueprint, pick something up, move it, and then it'll take and radically transform that architectural diagram or blueprint.
There's actually a couple of programs out there already, one called Insight VR, where we can load up our coordination model into their cloud and have up to 5 people with all the different type of VR goggles and have all of us in there at the same time. At this point, you can review and see and fly around in it together and add notes and stuff like that, but they're still working on the next part of being able to actually design in a VR environment. But I could see that being there in 5 years for sure.
It really is. It really is mind blowing. So let's talk a little bit about a company comes on board. The company comes on board with AR. They've decided they have a use case now. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, or they bring this technology on board. What's the learning curve? What was the learning curve for you to be able to actually, or your team to actually be able to build these models using AR and VR technology?
Well, VR is a little bit more complicated in that you have to still, we can take the models we use in construction and coordination and all the other design parts of the 3D modeling world and convert them into a virtual reality model. But you have to go through Real Engine or one of the other types of software, apply textures, lighting, and it takes time, not nearly as long as it used to, but it still takes time. So there is a pretty good learning curve for VR. There's a lot of good classes out there and a lot of good stuff on the internet. A lot of people, our guy, like I said, Michael Goldberg taught himself over the last 5 years, and he's gotten really good at it. But there's definitely a pretty steep learning curve for VR. But for AR, the app that I'm using and a couple of the other apps that I use, they have a plugin for the software that we use, which is Revit and Navisworks. So I just create a section box around the piece of the model I want to export and use their app, export it out. And then 10, 15 minutes later, it's on their cloud and I can access it through my phone, my iPad, or my HoloLens. And so it's a really easy, quick learn. And now, before the biggest problem we had as we started adopting it was the locating of the models. Before, you had to pick a spot in the field and then tell it which way was north. And then you had to kind of adjust the model to get it to locate in the right location. Now, since they've started using the markers in the QR codes, the codes now automatically locate it. So it's just making the software is just getting easier and easier to use.
It is funny because even like with web design and so forth, before you needed to know how to code, now there's tools out there that it's just pretty much drag and drop. And I did an interview with Alan Smithson a few weeks ago, and they're a company called Metaverse, and they're kind of designing technology, this AR technology where you don't have to code, you don't have to learn any of that. I think that's really how the future is evolving. In terms of innovation management. That has to be a relatively, or an innovation manager like yourself, that has to be a relatively new term to the construction industry. Is that something that is unique to you guys, or do you see a lot of use all over at different organizations and companies, construction-wise?
In construction companies, there's a lot of unique titles for what I do. I've seen a few different innovation managers out there, but it is a pretty unique title for this type of a position.
In terms of use cases, do you see any other use cases that we haven't spoken about that you can actually begin to or think about implementing AR or VR?
Another AR use case that I can tell you about, and this one I'm going to be presenting at the Built conference here in Seattle. It's a construction conference about the AEC industry.
Yeah.
And it's about, we're doing a remodel of a 100-year-old Asian art museum here in Seattle. And as part of the design, the mechanical system in that building was about 100 years old as well. So they wanted to tear that all out and bring in all new stuff, a whole better system to help, take care of all the artwork and everything like that. But they wanted to reuse the two same mechanical rooms that were in the basement for the new mechanical. So what I was able to do is once they finished tearing out and demolishing all of the old equipment and emptying out the two rooms, I brought down the facilities manager and two of his engineers with a HoloLens and a couple of iPads, and we did a design review of their new mechanical rooms in the space, empty space, but with the AR models. So they were able to check valve locations, gauge locations. They were able to check clearances and just the general layout of the mechanical rooms. And after the experience, they were all blown away, and they were willing to sign off on the design of the mechanical room before we ever started building anything. So in that case, it made us feel better about what we were building, and they felt a lot better about what they were going to get when the project was done.
In your in the talk that you're giving at the conference, will you be showing actual video of that?
Yep.
Would you share that with me?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
That would be great.
I don't have it ready right now, but I'll send it to you for sure, no problem.
That would be great, because I'd like to share that and kind of post that. So people
I can send you some video of the QR code stuff too with the iPad.
That would be awesome, because I think it's worth sharing. And again, the reason why I'm doing these interviews is really just to kind of get industry insight, so that when people are searching, because the biggest problem we have in the industry, and I gave a talk at MIT about this, about simplification, is it's one thing when an engineer talks to an engineer, they understand this, but normal people like you and I that aren't in the industry, they're like, what are they talking about? It sounds really, really complicated. And at the end of the day, we're talking about providing real benefits. We're not talking about features. And if we can simplify the message and help people understand it, like this is why this interview has been great, because I'm talking to somebody who's actually taken it, you've made sense of it, and you kind of started a conversation with maybe somebody who is in your shoes at a different company, saying, you know what, we can do this. This is something we can wrap our arms around. Yep. So really, I think that the future is very bright, specifically in construction. I know for AR it is. We just have to kind of get from here. And I think, like you said earlier, once we get 5G, it's just going to skyrocket.
Yep, I agree.
Is there anything else you want to tell somebody that was, kind of thinking about this, or if they were on the fence, anything that you could recommend, any kind of resources that you would recommend in the construction industry?
I would say, like I said, I work with a company called Visual Live. You can find them on the internet. The guy that runs the company, Saeed, is a great guy. He developed this app while working at a different general contractor to try to make his job better. People really liked it, so he took that to his own company. And he's a construction guy that wants to do a good job. So if you want to use an app, I would say, contact Saeed with Visual Live, because it'll take a great step in that direction. Then the other, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I interrupted, but what I was going to say is, if you send me that link, I can put any links that you want. I'll put in the notes.
And then the other thing I tell a lot of people that ask, I've talked with quite a few people about innovation and stuff, and a lot of people say similar type things, but if you're going to be an innovator, you're going to try new things, you're going to have failures, you're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have things that, aren't going to go exactly the way you want it to go. But for me, it's just a matter of sometimes taking a step back, looking at what the issue is, whether it's a person, it's a software, or if it's a cost, and trying to just figure out a different way to approach it and trying not to give up. And that's what I always tell people. If you really think it's a good idea and you feel it's going to be successful, don't give up.
I think it's Wayne Gretzky that said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And as an innovation manager, you got to take chances. Neil, this has been a pleasure. I learned a lot. I think it was very valuable. Unfortunately, your screen was frozen most of the interview, but you got to have some space, so that helps. But anyways, Neil works at BNBuilders. I'm going to drop his LinkedIn link to his LinkedIn profile if you want to connect to him. I really look forward to hopefully talking to you again, seeing that footage. And if you kind of want to come back and actually talk about, kind of recap your conference, I would love to do this again.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be up for that for sure. This has been great.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Neil Gordon with BNBuilders. He's in the Seattle office. I'm Mark Reese, the Digital Marketing Director with the GoldenEye Infinity Smart Screen. Look forward to talking to you again very soon, and have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Hold on a second, Neil. Don't hang up.
Okay. Of course, now that you stopped recording.
How funny is